Lions Rock Productions.
This is Popping the Bubble with hosts Sandra Ponce de Leon and Pete A. Turner.
Hi everyone, my name is Matias. I'm co-founder and CEO at Beeflow. So welcome to Popping the Bubble.
Thanks, Matias. Hey, it's great to have you here on Popping the Bubble. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So what you are doing with Beeflow is something so important because if we don't have bees, basically we're gone, right?
That's
and
true.
There's been a lot of discussion and news around, the collapse of a lot of bee colonies. So talk a little bit about what Beeflow is doing and how you are combating those problems that we're facing that are imminent for us.
Great, yeah. It's a very interesting problem and a very important problem that the world is happening right now. 70% of world crops depend on bee pollination to produce fruits and seeds. So if there are no bees, we won't have blueberries, apples, avocados, cherries, kiwis, a lot of fruits that we like to eat that will be gone.
Right.
So what we're doing at Beeflow is we're developing strong and smart bees for crop pollination. We have developed some technologies that are organic molecules products that by feeding bees with these technologies, we can improve their immune system and make the bees smarter and stronger to pollinate specific target crops. So we're increasing yields to farmers by providing a service where by adding these technologies, we are increasing yields. We are producing more fruits and bigger fruits. When you go to a grocery store and you see a big apple or a small apple, if you cut that apple by the half, you have the seeds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you see few amounts of seeds in the smaller apple, that's because of the bee. That's because the amount of pollen that was deposited in the flower that was before the apple.
Wow. And what is the root cause of the issue that we're facing right now with the bee collapse?
It's a very important issue. Here in California, I'm finding that there are some growers that kind of find beekeepers or beehives to pollinate their crops.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's a disaster, right? Like it can take it to a very, very important problem. Today, there are some farmers that are not producing the amount of almonds that they could produce per acre because they do not find bees, right? So there's a huge problem, and this problem is getting worse. So
what's happened to the bees?
The bees are getting in touch with different viruses. Also, the way agriculture is applying pesticides without caring about if bees are working at the fields. It's killing bees as well. So there's several factors. There's a mite that is very important on bee colony collapse disorder that up to now there wasn't that findings on how to eliminate that mite of beehives. So there's several problems. We consider there are some problems that can be avoided very easily. For example, the ones related to applying pesticides while bees are working. That's kind of a mindset that has to be changed from farmers who are the ones that produce the fruit in this world.
Right. So is this a common practice that farms will rent out bees? They'll get bees for hire, and what you're doing is you're actually just providing bees that are stronger and smarter and like to pollinate more.
Yeah,
so
what
this
we
is a
found,
it's a common practice that farmers do is rent out bees because they need some pollination. They don't just rely on nature these days, is what you're saying.
Yes, what we found in Argentina, where we're from, and here in the US, is that farmers in the last century manage pollination in the same way. What they do is what you said. They rent beehives from beekeepers, they put the bees in the field, and they say they trust in God that bees are going to work, but they do not measure anything about how those bees are behaving at their field. If every flower at their field is getting the amount of pollen that flower needs to produce a high quality blueberry, for example, or not. They're not measuring anything about pollination efficiency. So what we found is that there are different variables that are affecting bees' behavior, and we've developed different technologies to improve bees' efficiency while pollinating crops, On one side, we are feeding bees with one technology that makes their immune system stronger. So by doing that, bees can work much better under low temperatures than conventional bees. So one problem that farmers have today is that sometimes they have to wait till midday till they start seeing the bees work because
It's
it's
so
too
funny that
cold.
you're saying the bees, putting the bees to work, so that they actually are
Yeah.
working. It's like they, you know.
Yeah. And the other thing we're working on is there's some crops that are not attractive to bees.
Huh.
So bees go outside the beehive to look for food.
Mm.
Food for bees is pollen and nectar. Pollen is the proteins, and nectar has the carbohydrates.
Sure.
So there are some flowers that do not have nectar, and although they do not have nectar, they depend a lot on bee pollination to produce fruits or seeds.
Mm.
So what is happening right now is there are some farmers that are putting beehives in the blueberry fields, and because the neighbor has orange trees and the bloom
Oh.
is at the same time, the bees are going to the orange trees instead of the blueberry, or they're going to the wild clover flowers, right, that are found everywhere, and bees prefer that instead of blueberries. So by partnering with a scientist that has been studying for more than 15 years bees' brain and how their memory works and how their learning process is,
Hold on. Bees have a memory?
yeah, of course, they're one of
Wow.
the most intelligent insects in the
What's the
world.
lifespan of a bee?
It depends on the amount of flights the
Okay.
bee does. It depends on the wings, so it's measured kind of in the amount of kilometers that a bee does.
Mm.
So how many kilometers does an average bee go?
There's some research saying that they can fly up to 800 kilometers.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in their lifespan, right?
Yeah.
Like after 800 kilometers, like their wings are not working that much, so
Mm.
they get old and
Is
die.
that like a year? Is it 6
No,
months?
it's less. It's a couple of months.
Oh, okay.
The beehive has a very interesting cycle where every day you have like new bees that are being born because there's a queen that lays eggs every day, and you have the brood that is being developed because the bees are feeding that brood with the pollen and nectar that they're bringing from outside.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about the memory of a bee.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. When we started talking with this scientist that he's from Argentina, we found that there was kind of a research study being done there for more than 15 years, studying the neurons of the bees, how bees can memorize things, how they interact with flowers. The antennas of the bees have a lot of neurons, and when the antennas touch a flower, that gives a signal to the brain of the bees telling them if there's food or not, and if there's food they take their tongue out, right, and look for the food.
Huh.
So by understanding this, he developed together with us different technologies that by feeding bees with these organic molecules compounds that are specific for each crop, bees can memorize a specific resource that when they go outside the beehive, they just go and look for it. So similar to the Pavlov theory,
Yeah.
have you heard about it?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
So it's kind of something very similar, but to bees.
Wow.
By feeding bees with this, because of the odor of this, you can condition their memories.
Wow.
And by doing so, bees carry more pollen, right? This is for just a couple of days. We're not damaging anything of the bees. We're
Right.
caring about bees' health, of course. And this is done for a couple of days that last in their memory. And by doing so, bees carry more pollen and they transfer more pollen in their bodies. So because of that, you get an increase in yields as well.
Wow. Very cool. What started this fascination? Did you have a fascination with bees? Or did you just see that there was a business opportunity?
That's a good question. I'm 26 years old, and when I finished my last startup that unfortunately didn't go well, I started looking for new opportunities, and the past startup was really to the automotive industry, right? So when I decided to start a new company and learn that being an entrepreneur is very hard working, like working 12 hours, 15 hours a day,
Oh, yeah.
and it's so difficult to build a successful company, I started thinking on, okay, if I'm gonna start a new company, and it is so difficult to make it successful. I want to work for something that generates an impact in this world because it's so difficult. Maybe I have the chance of building one more or two more companies. If I want to make them successful, I have to have a lot of passion towards what I'm going to work with.
For sure.
So
Absolutely.
food in general, the food and ag space for me was very interesting. And I met my co-founders, Pedro Negri and Agustin Saez. Both of them have more than 20 years combined of PhDs in this topic. I have a business background. I studied business administration. And I found that there was a huge opportunity related to pollination in general because agriculture farmers have forgotten about it up to now, where bees are disappearing and they're finding that their yields are getting down.
So, okay, but who picks bees? How did you get to bees? It's
I-
such
I-
a
I-
fascinating thing. But
Yeah.
how
It
did you
really
get
is.
there?
Because I found like meeting with different researchers, I started finding that in the academia there were a lot of researchers doing cool stuff,
Yeah.
like very deep knowledge and developed for a lot of years. For several reasons, that knowledge wasn't getting to people's lives. Maybe because researchers have no idea on how to build a company,
Or
or
because the only white write papers?
or because they
Maybe.
or
That's an
because
inside joke between us.
because their motivations today are writing scientific publication, and that is good because they're developing science and scientific knowledge and sharing that with the society. But after meeting with several researchers, I find like this is great. Like bees are dying, and nobody's caring about this. Or yeah, there's some researchers caring about this for
Right.
sure. But what happens in the private sector? Like, is there any company caring about this and generating value to the farmers? And is there any market or business opportunity here?
Sure, yeah.
So we started meeting with a lot of farmers and beekeepers trying to understand what was going on. And after almost 4 months of just interviews and trying to get into a beekeeper's food or a farmer's food, trying to understand the problem as they feel it right now, we found that there was a new opportunity for us to transfer this scientific knowledge and technologies to the field and generate an impact in this world.
Wow.
Yeah, that's neat. And because you wouldn't, like, you want to build something cool, like, not that bees aren't cool, but like, I want to invent like the dating app. How many people have done that? You know, they get in that space, but you guys found, you did your work and like, there's a hole in this bee field with the knowledge that's available and the yields that
Yeah.
are being born. That's fantastic, man.
I wasn't passionate about bees before. I'm
Right.
completely sincere. I like nature.
Yeah.
I like food production
Right.
in general. I think that food production is one of the key problems or challenges that
Yeah.
the world will have in the next couple of years if the population keeps increasing as it's
Going to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right? So, and I found that nobody was doing nothing with this.
Right.
And
Huh.
that the technologies were so powerful that they needed somebody to get involved together with my co-founders and together build something.
When you guys figured this out and you know you realized that you got to come to the Silicon Valley to do this, did you also know that like the central San Joaquin Valley was just packed full of agriculture? Like it's the perfect lab for you guys.
Yeah, definitely. For us, being in Argentina, Argentina is one of the biggest food producers in the world.
Sure.
We are 40 million people, but we produce food for 300 million people. So we export a lot of food, and our culture and society is based on agriculture mostly. But yeah, when we started working on bee pollination and trying to understand which are the crops that depend more on bee pollination, we knew before coming here that California has the biggest market in the world of crops that depend on bee pollination. So when we found IndieBio,
Yeah.
we saw like, oh, this seems to be an opportunity.
Right.
Let's apply and see what happens. And if we can make it, we will be talking with the farmers in the ecosystem that we want to play,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Are you now? Do you guys consider yourselves beekeepers? You have your own set of bees, and you work with them and beehives, or how does that work? Or do you just go into beekeepers and help them with the food production,
And
or feeding the bees?
yeah,
What is it
today
called?
up to now we have partnered with beekeepers before to develop some field trials in order to demonstrate the growers the impact and that our technologies related to pollination can generate in their yields. So up to now, we do not have our own operations. We consider one of the next steps of our company is getting our own operations to provide a much better quality service to the growers. Although our field trials did pretty good, we generate like huge results in terms of yields. We're very surprised on those up to now. So,
But that's not necessarily an overnight thing. What's the time delay between getting the bees out into the field and understanding the impact to the yield?
what's the time?
Yeah,
What do
how
you mean
long
by-
does it take? I mean,
Oh,
how
yeah.
long did it take for your test for you to understand your test was successful?
It depends on the crop. Like we've been performing field trials on blueberries, apples, almonds, and kiwi fruit. Each crop has the bloom in different times in the year. For example, here you have right now the bloom of the almonds. Maybe in a couple of weeks the bloom of the blueberries. Later you have the bloom of, in April you have the bloom of the apples, and in May you have the bloom of the kiwi fruit. So it takes almost an entire season to measure those results because you
Right.
have to take the bees during the bloom, work there, get a lot of data, and then wait until harvesting. We've done that back in Argentina since we started 2 years ago. We had an increase between 20 and 90% in yields in comparison with conventional pollination. So after getting those results, we applied to IndieBio, and we're coming here to California, talking to farmers and sharing our data and all the results we got up to now, and trying to convince them to test what we're doing as well.
And you have partnerships with beekeepers here in California?
We have a partnership with one beekeeper here that
Hey everybody, Pete A. Turner, co-host of Popping the Bubble. This episode is sponsored by us over here at Lions Rock Productions. What do? Content management strategy. We'll help you create podcasts, develop strategies, consult on what you've got. If you want to take a look at content, we would love to have an opportunity to do that for you. Now let's get back to Popping the Bubble.
we're working with. We really like him because he's from Mexico. He's a Latin American person as well as us. And we met with a lot of beekeepers because to understand how pollination is being addressed here in the US, we have to meet a lot of people, because that was one of our biggest learnings, like building a company that solves a problem, and to get to the ideal solution to solve that problem,
Right.
you have to understand the problem deep. So
Yeah.
I remember here at IndieBio where everybody was asking, "Oh, guys, like, where are you right now? Like, you're not here at the office. Like, what are you doing?" It was like, "Oh, sorry, we're meeting a lot of farmers, and you won't see us here at the office because we have to be outside, and the farmers
Yeah.
are not in San Francisco, right?
Right.
Right, yeah.
So we have
Yeah.
to drive, and with the guys we're kidding because we're starting to measure the amount of miles we're doing per week because we're driving a lot for getting these meetings. But yeah, that's the way to do it.
How much of the equation is getting the beekeepers to accept what you're delivering? Because you have got the farmer end of it, but the beekeeper also has their own system
Yeah.
that they've always used. How much of that is a challenge for you guys?
On the beginning, we thought that it was a big challenge, but after beekeepers see how we work with bees and the impact our products generate in the bee colony strength,
Yeah.
how their bees evolve after being managed by us. We have received a lot of emails, text messages, whatever, from beekeepers. Hey, man, what do you put on the bees? They're crazy. They're like, I haven't seen them like this before.
Yeah.
Right? So for us, it's building a relationship based on confidence, right? And demonstrating them that we care a lot about bees, and we are doing this because we consider we can solve the problem with bee population decline. So it's going to be a long way, right? But it's very, very important for us
Yeah.
to get their approval on working together and delivering these high quality services.
I don't know that much about bees, so I'm going to ask this question just so I can see if I can figure out. Bees pollinate things, but so do moths, so do bats, all these other things. Is your system also able to be applied to the bat-specific answer or the moth or butterfly-specific pollination tools?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm the business guy, so
Yeah.
that's I think that's a question for
Sure.
Agustin that
I
he
don't know
has a
if there's an
PhD on.
industry around pollination using bats and moths, are there?
no,
Is
you
there-
Well,
know,
I mean,
like-
if you're going to grow like dragon fruit, you need moths and bats.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're the pollinators for dragon fruit, and dragon fruit are like $7 in a store. You know. Oh,
I don't
just,
even know
here
what
you
a
go. There's your
dragon
vertical.
fruit is. I've
It's
never
that
had
beautiful purplish looking thing. It has like a kiwi, like a
Ah.
white kiwi meat inside of it. Delicious.
Huh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Interesting.
Yep.
I haven't heard about it before. So
Well, there we go.
I have no idea about the answer. to be
Stage
sincere.
F funding.
The
Yes.
problem is that, yeah, there's a lot of pollinators,
Yeah.
right? But just one beehive has, in average, 50,000 bees.
Oh, wow.
Just one,
Yeah.
right? And growers put like 2 beehives per acre in the
Yeah.
almonds.
Yeah.
And you have here in California almost 1 million acres of almonds. So if you want to do the
The math.
the math there, like there's a lot of bees.
gajillion.
So how many other individuals, like
Yeah.
any other pollinators you need to pollinate the
Right.
almond? Like
Yeah. Wow.
it's interesting, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of bees, that's for sure.
Yeah. And are you actually going in with the beekeepers and donning the beekeeping outfit
Please say
on?
yes. Please say yes.
Yes, of
Yeah?
course.
Yes,
Yeah?
Yes,
Oh.
of course. I
love
have
it.
to do that. If I don't do that, I can't understand the problem.
And,
right?
Right.
and how many
Uh,
stings have you acquired since you've started the company?
Fortunately, none.
None. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow. yeah. I was very lucky, I think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are a startup. Like
Yeah.
everybody does anything, right?
Right.
Like if my colleagues need me to do something with the bees, I will go and do it.
Right.
And if I ask them, hey guys, I need some help with the financials of the company, they will come and do it. Although
Yeah.
they're researchers and biologists.
When you go out to market and you talk to venture capitalists, do they understand? I mean, you guys all here at IndieBio have a high science pedigree. So are the people that you're talking to, do they get it? Is this hard to sell?
It's a good question. I think that it's not hard to sell in comparison with, for example, therapeutics,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, therapeutics is hard. Yeah.
right? So I really like trying to explain a venture capital investor how it works. And I explain it like very, very easy. As I told you, like you go to a grocery store, you see a blueberry, and if you see a big blueberry or a small blueberry, you cut the blueberry by the half and you see the seeds. And the amount of seeds is related to the amount of pollen that was deposited
Right.
in the flower that was before the blueberry. So that's because of bees. So bees are very important for food production, and nobody's caring about how to solve this problem in terms of building a company that develops and takes the scientific knowledge that is being developed in lots of universities around the
Sure,
world
yeah.
and applying
And
this
applying
to,
it. Yeah, the
to
applied
farms.
science.
Yeah.
So and I'm imagining there's not really a lot of competition, or you've done this search. There's not anyone that's doing or approaching the problem quite like you guys are. But I think we were just talking about it on the way over. Well, what about those robotic bees? Are you afraid that they may take over?
I think we're very skeptical about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just PR. Like, as I told you, one beehive has 50,000 bees.
Yeah.
How many robots you have
Yeah.
to pollinate all the flowers,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
The flowers are not open or ready to be reproduced like for weeks.
Right.
Some of them are for just days,
Yeah.
2 days, one
Right.
day.
One day. Yeah.
So you have to have a robot that just that day goes and pollinate that.
That has somehow sense
Yeah.
built into it, or
Ye-
ability to understand when those
Yes,
open blooms are.
although if that happens, if somehow that technology works, we are developing a lot of data from bee pollination. We are getting a lot of data from the interaction between bees and flowers.
Yeah.
In the next stage of our company, we'll be developing a lot of sensors and hardware in order to get that data easily from the field. But if there's a company that wants to develop a robot to pollinate flowers, he will have to talk to Beeflo in order to understand which is the best way to pollinate each crop and what happens today with interaction between bees and flowers.
Yes, you guys are basically building the world's biggest business-based bee knowledge pile. I mean, you're going to know more about bees everywhere in the world than anybody else.
We want to do so, and we are like always trying to get in touch with new researchers. So if anybody's hearing this, and anybody's in the field of bees or pollination in general, please get in touch with us. Like, we would love to share our knowledge, and if we can give money to those researchers to perform projects together, we will love to do so, because we are the company that wants to be the leader on getting scientific knowledge ready to be pollination applied to agriculture. You know, if you see agriculture in general, like the industry, you have the biggest companies on pest management.
Sure.
You have the biggest companies on fertilizers. You have the biggest companies on genetics.
Yeah.
What's going on with pollination? 70% of worldwide crops depend on bee pollination.
70% of the crop of our crops.
Of all the crops.
Of all the crops,
in the world.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a lot.
Who's the leader in the world?
Yeah. Beeflo.
Yeah.
And since you're saying how to get a hold of you guys, let's just say this real quick. @Beeflo on Twitter is a good way to do it. You can find you there, and they can find you because you're in the bio of the Beeflo Twitter site. Because you're right, there's a lot of people that are worried about it, rightfully so. You know, we've got bees are a problem, and you guys are saying that we can not only make bees smarter, but stronger and healthier. That's pretty
Making super bees.
Super bees.
Yeah, that's fun. I mean, it must be. I think the topic is fascinating, and it must be really fun to be able to get out in the field and, maybe even see how your bees once they get that concoction, your secret concoction. How they act differently. That's pretty cool. What's been the biggest surprise in your entrepreneurial journey thus far with Beeflo?
That's a good question. For me, and I think for my co-founders as well, is I'm very surprised about how researchers can generate a huge impact in this world. I'm very surprised about when I meet with a new researcher and he tells me his story.
Yeah.
He has been studying for 15 years bees' brain.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
For me, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
So he's studying what's happening in this world, right? But just with the individual insect. And there's a lot of insects in this world. There's some people studying for decades.
Yeah.
The ants, for example.
Right.
So for me, I think there's gonna be kind of a revolution in terms of business based from science. That's why I'm a big fan from IndieBio, because we had the tech revolution.
Sure.
Right? What's going on with biotechnology, with biology, addressing the biggest problems that humanity couldn't solve yet, understanding better biology, right? What's going on with the human body, right? What's going on with animals, insects,
absolutely,
food, right? So I'm very, very surprised on that by working at Beeflo.
Yeah, the ability to customize and singularize whatever that pursuit is. We've talked to different people attacking cancer and looking at a specific, peat-based solution to my cancer, my specific thing. You're looking at specific, this one pollinator we can put a lot of effort into. And you don't go for the cheap joke like my beesness is.
Oh my gosh, there's got to be so many of those.
The biology of bees, I love that. But yeah, it's fantastic to see what you guys are all doing here, because we can specifically put a lot of brain power, and there is so much. There are PhDs that spend their entire career learning about the wings of bees.
Yeah.
And their work sits there waiting to be discovered, and you're like, not only are we going to discover it, we're going to put it with the bee brain guy, and then the other bee guy, and then you put this body of work together and throw some AI at it, and off you go.
Our team right now is built by researchers from 3 different universities.
Okay.
Right? My 2 co-founders are from different universities that they met together and put their brains work together in order to solve this problem. And then we partner with another researcher that he's from another university, right? So sometimes I think in the academic system or how it works today on scientific publication or competition among researchers, sometimes universities compete.
Yeah,
Like
right.
on who's the one that it's gonna get like
Yes.
the answer first.
Who wants the grant? You got to compete for grant money.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think that if those researchers will collaborate with each other, like they could solve like bigger problems, right?
Yeah.
Or they can go to the answers faster.
So maybe there's a new business opportunity there for connecting researchers working on world-changing problems and solutions.
Yeah, definitely. You know, one of our investors in Argentina, they actually do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a very interesting company. It's called Grid Exponential. Matias Viel, the co-founder and CEO, he has been studying for more than 4 years, doing research just about all the research projects that are being managed, like are being done in Argentina at different universities, different institutions, etc., and building a huge spreadsheet of all the projects that are being done and which projects have a huge potential of generating an impact in this world. So he just partnered with other people, and what they're doing today is they're introducing researchers to business guys or entrepreneurs
Yeah.
to build teams that together
That's cool.
can take that deep knowledge into people's lives.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like this mini silo situation where you have all these bee people that have to be competitive because there is only so much grant money, and you're sort of a hub for all this information, and that might actually create whole new breakthroughs when 2 guys talk and they're able to, and there's a whole new grant money because, wow, this really does, so it really does enable the ability for the creativity and the education to flow a lot better, and it's cool that we have the ability to do that, man. I like it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Great conversation.
It was a great conversation,
yeah.
and we love bees.
We too.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It's,
Thank you
we'll
very
be
much.
watching your progress, and anything that we can do to help, it will definitely be promoting the company as much as possible.
And for anybody who wants to get a hold of them, again, it's at BFlow on Twitter, and you guys are all connected there, so they can get a hold of you, of course, or at IndieBio if you want to have more about the organization as a whole. So it's fantastic.
Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matias.